Oh, yeah, okay. When are we coming?
Monday.
Okay, we're coming Monday night. Yeah, we are gonna be all together.
Linda, I can hear art in the background.
Okay, I will,
And then we're coming there on.
that okay? Why
Yes.
are we recording? It hasn't started yet.
I think Wendy set it to record. I think I'm going.
And we'll get started. Welcome, everyone. I'm Linda Mizell, and I am the Executive Director for the Jewish Community Foundation of Greater Mercer. I know that all of us at this time have heavy hearts. It's a very dark and challenging time for the Jewish community. We know the future of the Jewish people requires that we are strong and that we have vibrant Jewish communities in North America. It's times like this when we are reminded of the value of being part of a community with a common mission and a common purpose. And so I want to welcome you all for what I hope will be a very productive and interesting evening. First, I would like to thank and welcome Arlene Schiff of the Harold Grinspoon Foundation for joining us here this evening, and the Harold Grinspoon Foundation for their continued support through the Life and Legacy Plus initiative. As many of you know, Harold Grinspoon's leadership has made this program possible, and we are deeply appreciative. We are so pleased that 15 different Jewish organizations have registered to make this important learning opportunity, along with others from the National Life and Legacy Network. And we are very grateful to the Mark Merkovitz, Mark, wave your hand, and the Jewish Federation of Princeton Mercer Bucks for its generous financial support of life and legacy programming in our community. Before I introduce our panelists, I have a few logistical reminders. We have designed this workshop as a Zoom meeting and not a webinar because we want to encourage participation. We will take questions toward the end, and at that time, please feel free to raise your Zoom hand, or even better yet, put your question in the chat, and then we will be able to ask it of our speakers. Please keep yourself muted when you are not speaking. And as for the format this evening, Amy Zox will be asking each panelist a series of questions where they will describe various aspects of implementing life and legacy in their communities. That's why we've called them our powerhouse communities. And so first, I would like to welcome from Charleston. Please all join me in welcoming Judy Crosaro. Judy has served as the Chief Executive Officer of the Charleston Jewish Federation since 2014. Before this role, she was the joint CEO of the Charleston Jewish Federation and Jewish Community Center. Her portfolio includes providing support and oversight to the Jewish Endowment Foundation of South Carolina. Judy credits her participation in the Federation Leadership Development Program with igniting her passion for Jewish communal work. From Cincinnati, please welcome Deborah Steinbuch. Deb is the Director of Plan Giving and Endowment and oversees the Create Your Jewish Legacy program at the Jewish Federation of Cincinnati. She has been with the Jewish Federation since 2015 and is working on a long-term vision of fundraising, collaboration, focusing on blended solicitations, deepening relationships, and working with donors to connect their values to their philanthropic goals. And from Nashville, please welcome Norma Shirk. Norma is the Life and Legacy Community Coordinator for the Jewish Federation of Greater Nashville. She served in that role since 2017. She is also the staff coordinator for the Professional Advisory Council a group of experts who provide programs on estate planning and charitable giving. Norma is also a published author and a frequent public speaker. Again, welcome, Amy. Why don't you begin with the questions?
Thanks, Linda, and thanks, of course, to Judy, Deb, and Norma for joining me tonight. We put that graphic up on the screen just to do a quick overview of our 4 communities so you can get a sense of the numbers, the context, our successes, and so we don't have to spend time reviewing all that, and we can get right into some Q&A and some good information to inspire us as we continue to do the work in the Greater Mercer area. So the first question is for Deb. Deb, how did you integrate Life and Legacy into the overall fundraising landscape of your Jewish community?
Thanks, Amy and Linda, for having me, and good evening, Greater Mercer. I'm excited to be part of this panel. So it's a great question. How did we integrate it? I have to say that when we started this in 2014, what we did was we shouted it from the rooftop. We publicized it everywhere. We had a very large marketing budget. We put it in our Jewish community paper. We advertise even to this day on our public radio station saying, you know, if you haven't heard about Create Your Jewish Legacy, light the way during Hanukkah and contact Create Your Jewish Legacy. We put it in our Broadway series programs if we know that it has Jewish content, like The Fiddler on the Roof. We share our statistics at every meeting that we have. We share it at our annual meeting, and we applaud those who have been participating in Create Your Jewish Legacy. We show that our goal might have been 100 to start with, 1,000 the next year. Whatever our goal is at our annual meeting, we share that and we applaud it, and we make sure that it's a big deal as part in conjunction with everything else, obviously the annual campaign and our directed giving. We do an honor roll from the Jewish Federation, and we publish everybody's name, not just those who participate in the annual campaign, but also part of the Legacy program. We have a film festival that we've done every year. We invite our Legacy donors to it. We open it up to the whole community, and we give we have one day that's dedicated to, we call our program Create Your Jewish Legacy. And we get up and we have a 2-minute introduction. And I always have people stand. And over the years, what has really amazed me is in 2015, when I did the first, I introduced everybody the first time, there was probably like a quarter of the people that would stand up. And I would say, you know, all those who made a legacy gift, stand up. Last year when I did it, probably 3/4 of the audience that was there stood up and participated. People want to feel that they are part of this. And the more joy you make it, and the more big you know, like I said, shout it from the rooftop, the more people are going to participate in this program. So we put a full listing out in our community paper every year. So we're up to 2,000 legacy commitments. So that's 4 pages in our newspaper, which costs a ton of money, but we do it anyways. The good and the bad, we might make a mistake. A couple of years, well, I think my first year, I got a phone call from somebody and he said, the good news is I'm still alive. The bad news is you killed me in your publication. And I was like, oh my God. But you know what? It was the greatest interaction we could have with this donor. We ended up writing a testimonial. We found out that it was actually his grandfather. I mean, it was really a great, and they had the same name with a different middle initial. So you can do things like that and feel and make, you know, turn lemons into lemonade. We encourage buck slips in our invoices, you know, from your organization when you're sending out invoices for, you know, dues or payments or whatever, include a buck slip just about legacy giving and say, have you heard about legacy giving? Do you know about it? Have you made your legacy gift? You never know who's going to pop up and say, and check the box and send it back into you. The other thing we do is we put testimonials out on our Facebook page. We have videos of donors who have passed on, and when they die, like a week or two later, we'll ask the family if we can put this on Facebook, and they love it. And there's a lot of comments that really bring joy to the family about their loved one who's passed on and who has made a great commitment to the community. I think that's like the highlights of how we've integrated it, but really the more you can put it out there and ask people to be part of it, the greater integration are going to happen to your community.
Thanks for all that, Deb. I mean, we've been doing it nearly 10 years in our community, but I was still taking notes because you can still learn. And I love just the joy and the bigness and the shouting it from the rooftops. I think that's a wonderful way to integrate. The next question's for Norma. Norma, once you have received commitments, in our community we call it promises. I know in many of the other communities they call it LOIs, letters of intent. But once you've actually received these and realized them, how do you leverage those realized gifts to showcase the impact of life and legacy?
Yeah, thanks for having me. For realizing, there's two ways you can look at that. One is they've formalized, and the other is that the gift has been received. And we look in our community at the money received, the gift being received. It's interesting because Tennessee is the volunteer state, and Nashville is particularly known for its volunteer spirit and its giving spirit. So in our community, when we started, there were about 8,000 people who identified as Jewish in the greater Nashville area, and many of them are members of more than one synagogue. So that means that we average 2.2 or whatever it is gifts per donor. And so when a donor sadly passes on, that the word spreads very quickly because they're well known in the community. More than one organization is going to receive a gift from them. So that's one way that we leverage it. Another way is that I do articles for our local newspaper, The Observer, a couple of times a year about life and legacy, just kind of giving everybody an update about it. And I mentioned the number of letters of intent that we have, the number that have been formalized, the percentage, and how much money has been realized, how many gifts have been received. And that's a good way to keep the community, keep it top of mind with the community, and also for the organizations to kind of get excited again about why they're participating. So there's a lot of different ways that we do it. I think I forgot to mention, we also do what I call our centerfold. Every July in our newspaper, we list all of the donors and in the community, and there's, I don't know, somewhere between 350 and 400 individual donors now. The ones who have formalized are in blue. And just like Deb was saying, I've had a couple of times where I accidentally mixed up who had passed on and who had not. And I heard about it very quickly. But that's another way when they look at that list and they can see, oh gosh, my good friend, I had forgotten they've passed away. And so I know their gift was received by whatever organization they named.
That's very helpful, Norma. Thank you. I know we're planning on doing a community-wide listing for Tu B'Shvat coming up at the end of January. But thank you for that. And now, Judy, you have question number 3, which is, how do you convince people to step up and make this commitment, who are concerned that Jewish organizations might not exist in the future?
So first of all, I'm thrilled to be here filling in for Rebecca Engel. You know, I love this question. And in fact, someone actually asked me this today. So it's a question that we all frequently or infrequently get asked. First of all, the Life and Legacy program through the Harold Grinspoon Foundation and all the work that Harold and Winnie and Arlene and Dina and Tammy have done has really set our Jewish future up in a way that we are benefiting from, knowing that we are doing everything we can to create the financial sustainability of all our Jewish entities and our community. So shout out to HGF for everything they've done, to the extent that the process that they put into place really is, there's a mechanism where all of these life and legacy gifts need to go into your foundation. So what we say is, in the rare instance that maybe a JCC went out of business, what happens is you've got this board of directors who are tasked with ensuring that the intent behind that fund agreement is going to be honored and aligned with whoever else is in the Jewish community that is most closely related to the donor's wishes. I think one of the secrets to the success that we've had and that other communities have had is that this isn't transactional. These asks, these meetings that we have are very relational. And what Rebecca has done as the Life and Legacy Director, and what we've all done, we work, collaboratively, is we meet with the intergenerationally. So we bring the grandparent and the children in a lot of cases, the grandchildren in. And we want to learn about them, and we want to help empower them and have that conversation about what values are most important, what impact do they want to most have in the Jewish community, so that we're not just talking about, I want to give money to my synagogue, to BBYO, and to whatever, the Jewish Family Services, but they're really having meaningful conversations about what they want to help perpetuate, and what they want to see happen. And that really makes a difference in terms of, explaining to them that you're investing in this Jewish future and that you get to make this meaningful contribution that will live on in perpetuity. And it's incredibly meaningful conversations that we have that works. Somebody asked me this question again today, and it was an easy explanation. It's just having that mechanism in place where, if, God forbid, an entity, has trouble, and that happened to me. I inherited the JCC when I took over in that role, and I inherited a JCC without a business model that really didn't have any legs to stand on. So personally, anecdotally, I had gone through that as a professional, and I knew that it was so extremely important to do anything possible to put those systems and empower all our institutions with the understanding of planned giving and endowments and legacy gifts. And it really has worked. It's been very successful in really bringing that literacy and understanding to our partner agencies. I love it when I hear one of the president at the Reform Temple say, we need 20% of our operating budget coming from endowments by 2025. And it's just been codified. It's part of the philanthropic culture that we have created through Life and Legacy. And I will forever be grateful to Arlene, who came and visited Charleston, who really we weren't really meeting the criteria at the time, but she believed in us, and we've loved every moment of the last 7 years.
That's great. And I appreciate you emphasizing the more global messages of impact and values. It's important to remember that when in conversation with donors. Deb, you're up again, and this question is about board leadership. As we all experience, we have rotating members of our boards quite frequently, often every 2 years. And it's a continual transition, and it's something that needs to be managed, especially in the context of life and legacy, because there's a continual need to educate and get buy-in. And I'm hoping you can talk about how you and your community have managed this process.
Thanks, Amy. I want to reiterate a statistic that Judy just said, and I want to make sure everybody writes this down if you don't have it written down. Brian Klontz, a guru in plan giving, and he was an actuary, and I think that's the right word, prior to this career. He made up the statistics, which, he did the statistical analysis, that if 20 to 30% of your operating budget is not coming from your endowment, your chances of not existing go up exponentially. Your lights are not going to be turned on, or the lights are going to dimmer. So it's a really important statistic. And I actually had a Create Your Jewish Legacy team who made a thermometer, and they presented that to the board every year. And every year they would show where their thermometer was and how they were reaching that 30% of operating budget coming from their endowment. So it's a really strong statistic to keep bringing up to your board. So a few things that we have done is, one, I don't know how many organizations have roles and responsibilities. So when you ask somebody to sit on your board, I would suggest that you always have a role and responsibility. And as part of the role and responsibility that the volunteer signs off on is that they will have a life and legacy conversation with you in the first year of sitting on the board. They don't have to make their gift, but they should have that conversation. It brings them involved and understand what you as the volunteer is going through. We also say that every organization, every year when they update their business plan, we always ask for their succession plan. How many people have sat on your Create Your Jewish Legacy team for eternity? They're going to burn out. So it's time to refresh that team. And one of the things that we suggest is maybe asking the board president, who is now stepping off after 2 years and understands the importance of life and legacy, sit on your Create Your Jewish Legacy team, so that there's always a representative. And if they won't sit on it, you have a representative from the board who sits on the Create Your Jewish Legacy team, or somebody from your Create Your Jewish Legacy team sits on the board. So there's always some presence of Create Your Jewish Legacy or Life and Legacy on the board. So roles and responsibility, very important, and having some touch point with your board. We also suggest that in the start of the new board year, whether that's a January board or a September board, whatever, get yourself on the agenda. Make sure that there's a presentation every year to the board. Tell them not only about the success of your community, of your organization, but of your community. So you're seeing the totality, like Norma said, and we have the same statistic in our community too. About every donor who makes a gift, a legacy commitment, makes it to about 2.5 organizations. So it's not just their organization, and each organization in your community needs to continue to thrive in order for you to have a vibrant community. So it's important to demonstrate that to your board. So having the presentation and then having your scorecard presented, so that it's not just a conversation about, the dues and the other gifts that you might be giving or the fundraisers they might be doing, but what's actually happening with Life and Legacy. When you start presenting, and you hate to talk about realized gifts, because sometimes that means somebody died, but it doesn't necessarily have to mean that. Maybe there is somebody that you talk to who is in their 70s and they might have to start using their IRA and they want to gift to you today. Those are realized gifts too. But when you start hearing that of your 175 million, estimated future expectancies, 14 million has come in. That's a great statistic in 8 years. So, use those statistics to talk to your board and show them the value. The other thing we do during your presentation that's really important is to engage the board. If the board can open the door to, list your prospect people, and one of your board members might say, oh, you know what, I went to school with that person, I didn't know they were still in town, I can introduce you, or let me have that conversation, or let me write them a note, let me steward that donor by just writing them a note. So get your board members, and they might not feel comfortable asking questions or having a conversation, but they might feel okay with writing a thank you note or a Hanukkah card. So I think the most important thing about the boards, yes, they rotate, but you have to be forefront in their mind. The importance of what you're doing has to be forefront in their minds, part of their ongoing conversation, and let them know they have a stake in this, because if it isn't for your legacy gifts that you bring, the lights are going to dim.
That's so helpful. And I think in addition to presenting at that first meeting of the year is to somehow get Life and Legacy into their orientation materials as well. I think that's something that we have tried to emphasize but need to work on in our own community. The next question is for Norma again. And Norma, in Nashville, how have you ignited the fire, so to speak, about Life and Legacy so that the partner organizations, the synagogues, the agencies, continue to be motivated and engaged and prioritizing Life and Legacy year after year? We know it can get challenging after the first couple of years. And so how have you kept that fire going?
Yeah, we got through the first years, probably 4 or 5 years, pretty well. And then COVID put a dent in everything, and everybody sort of got off track. So the first live training, in-person training after the COVID lockdowns were done away with, I actually offered free booze as a way to get people to show up, and I still didn't get that many because a lot of them were like, oh, I might get infected by somebody, and I'm thinking the alcohol will kill it, let's just get together. But one of the things I like about Life and Legacy is that I am at heart an historian, and Life and Legacy is about history and the continuity in our communities and keeping the communities going. So I always come at it with that sort of attitude when I'm talking with the teams. Clearly, the teams that have professional staff, synagogues and some of the larger organizations, are going to do better because they are going to have a dedicated person on their staff, someone dedicated to fundraising, development, whatever the title is. The all-volunteer teams are the ones where it's a little more challenging. So we've been through turnover in personnel at the organizations. What I've tried to do in the last year and a half is to meet more regularly with the struggling teams. As Deb was saying, Arlene also suggested to our group about, to our community, about having board members that are rolling off the board serve for a year on the Life and Legacy team for that organization, because they already are familiar with it, and many of them are already Life and Legacy donors. One of the pushes I've been trying for the last year and a half or so is to get more younger volunteers involved. And we have a very active, what I would call young adult group. Not sure that's the correct term, how they would think of themselves, Now Gen, which does all kinds of activities. And so getting them more involved with organizations on causes that they care about, and then getting them on the Life and Legacy team is one of the things that I like to do. Another way that I see as igniting the fire is in Nashville, we have a very nice archives. And some people don't know, but even people who grew up here, that Jewish Nashville goes all the way back to the beginning of Nashville as a town. And so there's a lot of material. And we recently did an event that talked about our archives. We just digitized the documents in it, and it will soon, hopefully phase 2, is to have those available online for researchers and community members. So when you see that that is part of what goes into a community, you can tie it into life and legacy and get excited about the continuity and about supporting the organizations that will support the future.
That's great, Norma. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to tell everyone on the Zoom that I have a few more questions, but if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or when we conclude this section of the program, you can raise your hand and just ask them too, because we have these experts here with us, and let's maximize this opportunity. The next question is for Judy. And Judy, this next question, I know it's a challenge in my community, so I appreciate your insights. What techniques are you using in Charleston to encourage donors to formalize their promises? And do you ask your partners to get this done in a specific period of time after people make their commitments?
So to address the first part of the question, it's all about stewardship. And even when these gifts are formalized, it's still about stewardship, because anyone can change their mind at any time and remove your organization from their legacy gift. So it's stewardship, stewardship, stewardship. And it's so interesting. I have, Deborah, a whole bunch of community members that moved from Cincinnati. And I remember when Life and Legacy started, a few of my board members, in fact, just were constantly sharing all the things that you had been doing in Cincinnati. There's some basic things I'm sure that you're all doing already, but you have to continuously touch your Life and Legacy donors. I mean, it can't be just a one-off, a card on their birthday. It has to be something that feels, again, relational, that you're not just sending everybody the same card and that's it. What we found when we were in the cohort, the Life and Legacy cohort, that the incentives, the formalization incentives were great, because it really was a motivator to get these LOIs formalized. And that was a form of conditioning everyone that they needed to do that. They needed to get the LOIs and within a reasonable period of time. And we didn't dictate. We gave different options. You can formalize in 6 months, you can formalize in a year. So we didn't lock them into any of the organizations into a very specific time frame, because everyone's scenarios are different. But we did find that really helped to condition the organizations to continue to do the stewardship. And what we found is the gifts now are coming in without, the role that we were playing at that time, which was with the incentives. If you have 5 formalizations, we're going to give you $2,000. We're not doing that now, and they are still coming in. I do think that the testimonials, like being able to share your story, your legacy, is the most profound way to really have these donors share what's most important to them. So we're really working on our book of life. We have the Center for Southern Jewish Culture. And one of the things that one of our projects up and coming will be to make sure all of these testimonials are stored, or audio and stored at the center, so that in perpetuity, everyone's testimonials will be able to be heard in that way, as well as on all our websites in our Book of Life. So I think that's a really important one. Taking, sharing one of their testimonials in your publication, highlighting the donors is very meaningful to donors, and it really works. And of course, holiday cards and phone calls on their birthday and inviting them, to give them VIP invitations to programs, just little things like that can make all the difference. I will share again, anecdotally, that when I created my gifts, I formalized, I had 4 LOIs for 4 different organizations, including Federation in my community. The only stewarding that I have received has been from Federation. That's not good. That doesn't make a donor feel good. So whatever you guys do, just keep in mind, in the back of your mind, really remember and think about what it would feel like if you are committing this legacy gift that means so much to you, and the recipient organization is not stewarding you on an ongoing basis. Did I answer the question? Did I miss anything?
No, you did. And I think what was helpful to hear is that it's all connected, that when you steward someone and you maintain that connection, that they are more likely to want to formalize their gift and feel good about it. And so that it's not just silos of stewardship, marketing, formalization, but there is a connection to it all. And that was helpful. Let me just
Amy? Oh,
yes,
I have a couple of questions that have come in, so are we ready for them yet, or?
sure, I have a few more on the back burner, but we can jump into the participants.
So one question, I'm going to start with Judy, that came in, which piggybacks on your talking about using current promise makers to, through testimonials. And the question is, how do you use people who have already made a promise to generate interest in their friendship circle? In other words, a testimonial is one thing, it's a very public kind of thing, but on a more intimate level, have any of your communities had success in which you brought together a group of promise makers and said, you are, the leaders, you are the promise makers. How can you help us go out to some of, here's our list, go out to some of the members in the community and help generate more commitments, promises, however you would want to talk about it. Curious if any of you have done this and how successful it's been.
I'll jump into this one first, and then hopefully you'll have more to add, both of you. Actually, JF&A created, and this was created in Memphis at the Jewish Federation of Memphis by their exec, her name is Laura Linder, a program called The Woman Behind the Pin. And it's a program for Lions of Judah to make a commitment to who are they going to leave the pin to. And what it did is it came with a whole beautiful box and a lot of, information, for the donors when they did that. What we do is a perfect opportunity to do exactly what you're saying is at our Lion of Judah event or at our Pomegranate event. If we incorporate the life and legacy component and their legacy, with Lions of Judah, we want Lions to endow their gift. That's a legacy gift because it's afterlife. So it's the perfect alignment. And it's also in those environments where it's philanthropic groups, and they're usually, a lot of them are friends. It is, when one person does it, it tends, you'll find that other women, their friends will do it. So that was one really package way to accomplish that goal. And you can do it with any of your networks. You can plug that in.
Right. Deborah?
Yeah, I think that the Life and Legacy Harold Grinspoon Foundation did a program called Each One Reach One, which when they highlighted that, we all went, duh, like, of course. So you have your community members who you have these deep conversations with, and it might take them 30 minutes or 30 seconds to make a legacy goal, or make a legacy commitment, but normally it will take them 3 to 5 years to really formalize. But when they make it, they feel so good about it. And if you can capture that feeling right then and there and say, hey, have you told your friend, or have you ever talked to Ross about this, or and really when they feel so good about it, and you've got that hook in them, ask them to reach out, and you'll be so surprised how many other people will be like, yeah, I'll share my story with them, and go with them, or ask them if one of the professionals can call. But that's when you really capture that great feeling of being able to have somebody else other than you have that conversation. So we did that. We did the Each One Reach One program because we were like, a light bulb went off, and it was really a great program for us.
Okay, Amy, more questions. Amy, you're on mute.
Sorry. One of our participants posed this question. So Norma, Deb, Judy, whoever wants to jump in. Do you advise participants to fund, I think participants means donors. Do you advise donors to fund all or part of their promises with current money if they can afford it? Or should Life and Legacy focus on promises that will be realized after the donor is deceased?
I can talk to that. We don't actively discourage donors from making cash gifts, but we do try to have a conversation with them about the fact that for purposes of legacy giving, looking at the longer term, 1% of your estate, that may not seem like much now, but in another however many years, decades even, it can be significant. So you try to help them understand that for Life and Legacy, it probably makes more sense for that future promise, or that promise to give in the future, as opposed to just, here's $1,000 or whatever, and we'll call it quits.
That's helpful to hear. Any other?
Well, I think also we're not financial advisors, so it's a thin line that we walk when we have these conversations. And even as a professional, I would never recommend the how. I would recommend, like Norma was saying, a percentage, or go talk to your advisor about how you're going to do that. And I think as community members, that's probably the scariest part of the conversation, is the how. Like, you don't, and I always tell people, you don't have to know. Just get them to go to their lawyer, get them to go to their financial advisor to sign that paper, and make sure it's done. And don't worry about the how they're doing it. And there are some organizations that are doing fund for the future now, cash gifts. And that's a great way to get money now. So you can do that as a cash gift, but just don't feel that you have to have the answers to the how.
And I would just add that we want to be their philanthropic partners. So there isn't any one size fits all. I think that as development professionals, we understand the portfolio of opportunities for our donors. And again, it's those conversations and really listening to what they want to do is really, you take your cues from them. They're really going to guide that. And I agree, we are not financial advisors. We would never presume to tell them how to do it, but we do listen and we do direct them in the right direction, or empower them with how do you successfully bring this to fruition.
That was helpful. Thank you, everyone. Linda, did you have any other questions?
Well, here was a question. I think people were impressed that a number of the communities received multiple promises. And I see a lot of nodding here. And some of the organizations were saying that I know that this is somewhat true in our community, that in the beginning, people often made more than one gift. But as time has gone on, people are generally starting with the one gift of the organization that asked them, even though the promise card lists all the community organizations. So I'm wondering if there's any part of that conversation or the stewarding for communities where people don't belong to more than one congregation. So it's really a congregation perhaps and a communal agency that would be the two recipients of the legacy promise. What's some language that you use as a way of helping people to think more broadly or encourage your teams to use?
I think that within our community, there are some organizations that people prefer to give a promise only to that organization. But for most of the people, it's going to be their synagogue or the synagogue plus maybe Jewish Family Service or one of the schools, that kind of thing. And I think as they talk to their friends, they realize that they're having a conversation with the friend, and the friend is saying, I had this life and legacy promise and I've just formalized it, and gee, when I got to thinking about it, I added these other organizations. And I think it just kind of encourages people to think beyond just their synagogue and to look at the community as a whole.
Great.
I would add, we had 3 goals, primary goals, when we started in the cohort all those years ago. One was to raise awareness that we have a Jewish foundation in our community. Another one was to empower all of our recipient agencies, all our institutions, with the tools they needed to really understand the importance of plan giving and legacy gifts. And then the third was to bring everyone together around the shared vision of what we wanted our Jewish community to look like. And that is the first few years when Tammy would come in and we would have everyone literally around the table and working together, it just broke down so many silos. And so what we found was I think we even incentivized them in the beginning that if you were an organization and you were able to get an additional one for another entity, you were incentivized for that. And everyone got so into that. It just became, such a great experience where the day school would call the Jewish Family Services and say, we got one for you. And it just became, just a really exciting shared experience that we still have. So I would just add that.
Yeah, if I may, that's such a good point, because one of the things early on that folks realized was if they were a small team with all volunteers, no professional staff, it didn't matter because everybody was out there talking about all the organizations. They took the little booklet along with the statement for each organization. And so you got so much value out of it without having to go out there and do every conversation yourself. And that's been great to help with encouraging people to do more than one promise.
That's great. So we have another question, and this goes back to the board engagement. So we talked about keep making life and legacy part of the board orientation, part of the first board meeting. But what are some ideas for engagement that you think you've done that have been particularly successful?
Are you asking engagement? Oh, go ahead, Judy.
No, please, you go ahead. Oh, no.
I wanted clarification, engagement with the board or engagement in the community?
Engagement with Life and Legacy as a board member. So I'm a board member, and somebody in the community walks up to me and they said, "Oh, I've seen this poster about Life and Legacy." And then I jump on it and I'm all excited, or I say, "Oh yeah, it's one of the things we're doing. Joe is handing up that committee. You could talk to him." Those two very different responses could mean getting a legacy promise or not. So I'm curious what you've done, what kinds of conversations you've had to help board members understand the importance of legacy giving.
So I was gonna share this in the next question, but I'll just share it now. The challenge is that leadership changes it's very fluid. So what we did was we created these communities of practice. So presidents have a program called President Circle, where they're having one tomorrow morning. So that, and in all of these different communities of practice, development directors meet regularly, the admin professionals meet regularly. There's all these different channels of communication and opportunity. And in every single one of these, Life and Legacy is integrated into these meetings. So it's constant communication, constant support, shared successes, sharing best practices, and that's helped to keep it on the forefront of everyone's minds.
That's a great idea to have all of the people in each particular cohort meet. Thank you. Others, Deborah and Norma, how do you keep those board members on track about Life and Legacy?
It's also, like I had said, getting them involved in, and maybe they don't understand the conversation or they don't understand the full scope, but if you get them involved in maybe the stewardship piece of it, and you have them write a thank you note, or you have them make sure that they sign a Hanukkah card so that they feel empowered to be part of this collective, then it grows with them as they sit on the board longer and participate longer. I had a board member who was very active in our annual campaign, and I kind of kept pushing myself into the annual campaign team meetings, and I finally I would sneak in, "Oh, have you talked to this person about a legacy gift?" And he's like, "Will you quit bringing up legacy?" And finally, after about 2-3 years, he finally made his legacy gift and he got it. And now every time we have an annual campaign meeting, he always says, "Debbie, do you know any information about their legacy gift?" So, again, it's a drip effect sometimes with legacy. It's not a quick conversation. It's not a quick ideation. It's a drip effect for everybody new to this. And it's not always comfortable, but we have to make it comfortable.
Yeah, this year I sent out a reminder for all of the board board retreats. And it was a 2-pager, and it was like, what is Life and Legacy? What is the responsibility of the board with Life and Legacy? And it had bullet points. And then it also had, I customized it for each of the organizations, because the flip side showed the community-wide stats on number of LOIs and formalizations, and et cetera. And then it also showed their specific organization, so they could see how they fit in with the bigger scope of things, and they could get a refresher on the program.
Norma, could you send us that? I would, just a template of that. I think that's a great idea. And I think some of our community members would like something like that. I think
be happy
it
to.
also starts a little competition. My congregation or my organization has X number of promise makers, and another one is a little higher. Perhaps we want to move in that place.
Yeah, you can motivate organizations, and our centerfold that we do every year is a color centerfold. So everybody who has formalized has their name in blue ink, not black. And after the first time that showed up, like 6 years ago, everybody went completely crazy, and they started formalizing immediately because they were like, "I want to see my name in blue ink." So it works for individuals too, to be a little competitive.
Thank you. That's terrific. I think. Sorry had the question, what items are on the scorecard to help report activity and the impact of legacy efforts?
I can tell you what we put on our number of LOIs, or our letters of intent, our numbers of formalized commitments. And we put in, the estimated future expectancy and our realized gifts. I think those are the 4 things we put in to our
Great.
scorecard.
Yeah, we have those, we track those 4 things. I do an article for the Observer, our local newspaper, several times a year about life and legacy, and I always include the stats for the entire, the entire community.
Perfect. Thank you. And are there any other questions?
Can I say one more thing about the scorecard? It's not a number, but it's names. If you have a small organization, you can always list the names in your organization of those who have made their initial prompt, their letter of intent, and who have formalized it, and put that on the back of maybe your minutes or your agenda. The other thing to bring to board members are your prospect lists. If those names are forefront, and they're looking at that, maybe it will spark somebody to again do an introduction for you. So that would be the other thing I encourage organizations to include on their agenda at every board meeting.
Right. That's really a great idea to have the prospects out there. Who are the people who we should start to approach? Because we don't always know who's connected to who. And there might be people who are connected. I think somebody said before, oh, I went to school with him. Or our children went to the same preschool. That's a way in which you can be connected to someone that other people might not know about.
Linda, I'm seeing it's 7:57. So do we want to?
I
turn to
think,
Mark?
I think this has been great. I think we want to have Mark close our program, but so Mark, why don't you?
Sure.
begin?
Hi, everybody. My name is Mark Merkovitz. If you don't know me, I'm the executive director of the Jewish Federation of Princeton Mercer Bucks. Our federation is pleased to partner with Foundation and provide financial support to Life and Legacy to put on programs like this. And we know Life and Legacy is transformational in our community, as we've heard from our guest speakers also in their communities. We're helping to, this helps to sustain Jewish synagogues and agencies throughout for the next generation. I want to thank Judy, Deb, and Norma for giving of their time and expertise this evening, and also their enthusiasm that exuberated over the screen. So thank you very much for that. I know we're all inspired and excited to explore the ideas and best practices you all share with us. As a reminder, Hanukkah starts tomorrow night. Please consider joining our virtual community-wide candle lighting ceremony in solidarity with Israel that begins at 7 p.m. If you haven't registered already, and we've had over 360 registrations, you can call me at 609-203-2310. Again, 609-203-2310. As we celebrate Hanukkah, I want to salute all of you for your dedication to your Jewish organizations. Continue to be a light as you work to sustain our vibrant Jewish community. And I also want to thank Linda and Amy for their leadership on the community level. I want to wish everybody a good night and wish you an enjoyable and meaningful Hanukkah.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. And again, happy Hanukkah. And may we hear good news from Israel soon.